I made you my friend. People beg for that honor. Do you know how lucky you are to stand before me? Machi, if you want this friendship, you must earn it. How? Sweep my compound, fetch water for me, and remember, you should be grateful I still keep you. Friendship with me is a privilege.
Once upon a time, in a small African village called Amanze, a baby girl was born to a very wealthy family. Her parents named her Imachi. She was the first and only child in her family, and from the day she was born, her parents loved her more than anything in the world. Amanze village was a peaceful place with red earth roads, green farmlands, and tall palm trees that swayed gently in the breeze. The villagers lived in mud houses with thatched roofs or rusting tin sheets. Every morning, the roosters crowed at dawn and the women swept their compounds with long broomsticks made from palm fronds. Children ran barefoot on the cool morning soil and goats bleated as they searched for food. Life in Amanze was simple and traditional, and everyone in the village knew everyone else. Imachi's family was different from many others in the village. They were rich, owning large farms of yam and cassava, and many goats and chickens. They even had a few cows, which was rare in the village. Imachi's father was a respected man who traded goods with other towns, bringing back salt, cloth, and other treasures that were hard to find in Amanze. Her mother helped manage the farms and the household. Because of their hard work, Imachi's family always had plenty of food and nice things. They lived in a big compound on a little hill at the edge of the village. The compound had several huts and a main house with a tin roof that shone under the sun. Other villagers often looked at their home with admiration and sometimes a little envy. From a young age, everyone could see that Imachi was a special child. She had big, bright eyes and a smile that made her cheeks round and cute. As she grew older, her beauty became even more obvious. By the time she was a small girl running around the village, people would comment, "What a beautiful child." Her skin was smooth and dark like polished wood, and her hair was thick and shiny. Her mother dressed her in the prettiest clothes they could afford, colorful dresses with patterns of flowers and beads around her neck and wrists. Many other children had only simple clothes or sometimes old worn-out dresses, but Imachi always looked like a little princess in comparison. Imachi's father and mother loved her daughter very much. Being their only child, they often gave her whatever she wanted. If she pointed at a piece of sweet yam to eat, they gave it to her. If she wanted a new doll, her father would ask the tailor to sew a doll for her, or her mother would make one stuffed with soft cotton. If she refused to do her chores, sometimes they would laugh and let her run off to play. Because she was so precious to them, they found it difficult to scold or punish her strictly. They did not like to see her cry or frown. So, as Imachi was growing up, she learned that she could often get her way by pouting or complaining. When Imachi was about 5 years old, a sad thing happened. Her father became very ill. He had a fever that would not go away. The villagers tried to help with herbs and the local nurse came to check on him. But after some weeks, Imachi's dear father passed away. It was a very dark day in Amanze village. Her father had been kind and generous to many people, so everyone mourned his passing. Women wailed and men shook their heads in sorrow. Imachi's mother was heartbroken. She held little Imachi close as they wept. Imachi was too young to understand everything, but she knew her father was gone forever, and it made her very sad. After her father's death, it was just Imachi and her mother at home. Imachi's mother had to be both a mother and a father to her. She worked even harder on the farms and managed the trading business as best as she could to maintain their wealth. People in the village respected her for being a strong woman. They often said to Imachi, "Your mother is very brave and hardworking. You must listen to her and make her proud." Imachi would nod, But deep inside, all the attention and praise she got made her feel important. As the years passed, Mmachi grew from a little girl into a young maiden. Each year, she became more and more beautiful. By the time she was a teenager, she was known as the most beautiful girl in Amanze village and even the surrounding villages. People said her beauty was like the moon glowing in the night sky. When she walked, it was as if an invisible crown sat on her head. Strangers who came to Amanze's market would notice her and ask, "Who is that lovely girl?" And the villagers would proudly say, "That is Mmachi, the daughter of the wealthy widow on the hill." However, as her beauty grew, so did something else, Mmachi's pride. She started to feel that because she was so beautiful and came from a rich family, she was better than everyone around her. Little by little, her behavior began to change. She stopped playing kindly with some of the other children in the village because she felt they were too rough or not clean enough for her. If a friend had an old toy or wore torn clothes, Mmachi would tease them and say unkind things like, "Go away, you are too dirty to play with me," or "My doll is much prettier than yours. Yours looks like trash." Some of the children cried and ran away when she said these hurtful things. Others tried to avoid her altogether. Mmachi's mother heard about her daughter's behavior and was very upset. One evening, after hearing that Mmachi had insulted one of her playmates who came from a poorer family, her mother sat her down outside their house. The sun was setting and the sky was painted orange and pink. Her mother said softly, "Mmachi, my child, I heard that you were unkind to your friends today. Is it true?" Mmachi shrugged and replied, "They were calling me to come and play in the mud by the stream, Mama. I told them I don't play in the mud like pigs. I'm not a farm girl like them." Her mother was disappointed and shook her head. She gently explained, "There is nothing wrong with playing by the stream or being a farm girl. Look at me. I work on a farm too, so we can have food. All work is important, and all people are important, rich or poor. You must learn to respect everyone, my daughter. Pride is not a good thing. If you look down on people, one day you might need their help and they will not be there for you." But Mmachi did not understand the full meaning of her mother's words. She was still young and thought that being from a rich family and being pretty were the most important things in the world. So she just said "Yes, Mama" to please her mother, but in her heart, she still felt proud. She believed her mother worried too much. After all, many villagers still treated Mmachi kindly and gave her special attention because of her family status and her looks. She enjoyed that feeling and began to expect that everyone would treat her like someone important. By the time Mmachi reached her late teenage years, her pride had grown deep roots in her heart. She carried herself with her chin high and seldom listened to advice from her mother or anyone else. Though she loved her mother in her own way, she often thought her mother did not understand how special she was. Mmachi would think, "Mama grew up as an ordinary village girl, not as beautiful as me. She doesn't know what it's like to be admired by everyone." This pride in Mmachi's heart became like a thorny weed in a garden, growing bigger each day and choking the flowers of kindness and respect that her mother tried to plant. For example, when she went to the village stream where other girls gathered to wash clothes or fetch water in clay pots, the others would chat and laugh together. Mmachi would stand aside, rolling her eyes and refusing to join in their simple fun because she felt it was beneath her. If an older woman greeted her warmly, saying, "Good afternoon, Mmachi, how are you?" she might simply nod quickly and walk away, without the usual village courtesy of stopping to talk. The elders noticed these things and began to whisper among themselves that the rich man's daughter had become too proud. One of the people who knew Mmachi best was her childhood friend, Ozioma. Ozioma was a girl from the same village, about the same age as Mmachi. Unlike Mmachi's family, Ozioma's family was not rich. They were simple farmers who worked hard each day to make a living. Ozioma had several younger siblings whom she helped take care of. Despite the differences in their family's wealth, Mmachi and Ozioma had grown up playing together as little girls. Ozioma's mother often helped on Mmachi's family farm during harvest time, and sometimes Ozioma would come along. The two girls would run around the compound laughing and chasing chickens, or sit under the shade of a big mango tree sharing ripe mangoes and silly stories. In those early years, they were very close friends, almost like sisters. As they grew older, many things changed, but Ozioma's heart remained kind and humble. She was a gentle girl who respected everyone. She would wake up at the crack of dawn to help her mother sweep their yard. She fetched water from the stream, balancing the clay water pot on her head with grace. Often, she would pass by Mmachi's house on her way back from the stream and stop to give Mmachi's mother a fresh calabash of clean water as a sign of respect and kindness. Mmachi's mother was always grateful and would say, "Thank you, Ozioma. You are such a helpful child." Sometimes, Ozioma would invite Machi to walk with her to the stream in the mornings or evenings. She thought it would be fun to spend time together and also help Machi learn how other girls lived. But many times, Machi refused. She would wrinkle her nose and say, "Why do you want me to carry water like a village laborer? We have servants to fetch water for my house. I don't want to tire myself or mess up my dress." These words hurt Ozioma a little because she only wanted to share time with her friend. Still, Ozioma would smile softly and reply, "It's all right, maybe another time," and continue on her way, her one slipper slapping softly on the dusty path as she carried the water pot. Ozioma's chores did not end with fetching water. She helped her mother in the kitchen to prepare food for the family. In the evenings, one could often see Ozioma sitting on a small wooden stool in front of her house, blowing on the cooking fire to keep the flame strong under the pot of soup, or pounding yam in a wooden mortar with a heavy pestle. The rich aroma of vegetables and spices would fill the air around their home. On some days, Ozioma would roast corn or boil cassava for dinner. If Machi visited during those times, Ozioma would gladly offer her some roasted corn or a bowl of fresh soup. But Machi sometimes turned up her nose at the simple meals. She might say, "Thank you, but I don't feel like eating that," especially if it was a common food like cassava porridge, which she considered too plain. Ozioma would feel a sting of embarrassment, thinking her food was not good enough for her friend. But Ozioma would say nothing rude in return. She would eat quietly and let Machi be. The two girls also attended the village school together for a few years when they were younger. In class, Ozioma was attentive and respectful to the teacher, while Machi sometimes acted bored or played with her hair, knowing that even if she didn't pay attention, the teachers favored her because of her family background. On the way home from school, they often walked side by side under the hot sun. One afternoon, an elderly man carrying a heavy sack of yam tubers was struggling on the road. He was one of Ozioma's distant relatives. Ozioma quickly said to Machi, "Let's go help him." She ran over to the old man and offered to carry the sack for a while. The old man smiled and thanked her, and together they lifted the yams and carried them to his hut a short distance away. Machi had followed slowly behind, not very eager to help. By the time they finished, Machi was sweating and she complained, "Ozioma, why did you make me help carry that heavy sack? My arms are hurting now, and look, my dress has sweat stains." Ozioma apologized. "I'm sorry, Machi. I just felt we should help him. He is old and weak." The old man, hearing this, turned to Machi and said kindly, "My child, thank you for your help. May you be blessed." But Machi only gave a half-hearted nod and quickly walked away, leaving Ozioma to make proper farewells. As they continued home, Ozioma tried to lighten the mood and said, "At least we did a good deed today." Machi rolled her eyes and replied, "Next time, you do your good deeds alone. I don't want people thinking I am a servant carrying loads on my head." Ozioma fell quiet after that. She was hurt by those words because she believed helping others was a good thing, not something to be ashamed of. Despite moments like this, Ozioma remained Machi's closest friend. She was patient and forgiving. If Machi said something hurtful, Ozioma might feel bad, even cry a little in private, but she would always come back to be by her friend the next day. Many villagers wondered about their friendship. One woman said to another in the market, "Machi has become so proud. I'm surprised Ozioma still walks with her." The other replied, "Ozioma has a good heart. Maybe she hopes Machi will change. Or maybe she feels sorry for her, because even though Machi has everything, she seems to lack kindness." They both sighed and hoped that as the girls grew, Machi would learn from gentle Ozioma's example. Machi's mother also noticed the difference between her daughter and Ozioma. She saw how respectful and hardworking Ozioma was. At times, she would gently encourage Machi to be more like her friend. She would say, "Did you see how Ozioma greeted the elders at the market today? She even offered to carry old Madame Ude's basket. That is how a well-raised girl behaves, my dear." Machi would shrug off these comments. Sometimes she even felt annoyed. She thought to herself, "Why is Mama always comparing me to Ozioma? I am the one with fine clothes and good looks. People should be comparing Ozioma to me, not me to her." And so, as the two friends blossomed into young women, their friendship continued but was strained at times. Ozioma's loyalty never wavered, but in her heart she often felt pain from the sharp thorns of Machi's proud words. She wished her friend would see that life was not all about beauty or wealth or being above others. Whenever she tried to gently talk about such things, Machi would either laugh and change the topic or dismiss it. For example, one evening after they both attended a village dance under the moonlight, Ozioma said, "Machi, did you notice how happy everyone was, dancing together? No one cared who was rich or poor. We were just enjoying as one people." She hoped Machi would agree and realize that simple joys and treating everyone equally were important. But Machi simply replied, "I danced because I am the best dancer and everyone was looking at me. I know they couldn't stop admiring my new beaded necklace and how gracefully I moved." Ozioma sighed. "It's not a competition, Machi. It's about sharing joy." But Machi shook her head as if Ozioma did not understand and said, "If you say so," in a dismissive tone. In moments like that, Ozioma would feel a heaviness in her chest. She loved Machi as a friend, like the sister she never had, but she feared that Machi's pride would bring sorrow someday. Still, Ozioma kept these worries to herself and remained by Machi's side, hoping that someday life would teach her the value of humility and kindness. Time passed, and the girls reached the age when young women in the village began to receive suitors for marriage. In Amanze village, when a girl was of marriageable age, families from near and far with suitable young men would come to court her. This was a proud moment for many families, and it was common to see parents of a young woman preparing food and kola nuts to welcome visitors who came to express interest in their daughter. Machi, being extremely beautiful and from a wealthy family, drew the attention of many potential suitors. Young men and their families came from Amanze and even from other villages after hearing of her beauty and family wealth. They believed she would make a fine wife and mother, and her family's name was well respected. But as each suitor came, Machi's pride showed itself more and more. One of the first suitors was a handsome young man from a neighboring village. He was the son of a respectable palm wine tapper. His father had saved money and heard about Machi, so they decided to come and ask for her hand in marriage. On a sunny afternoon, this young man, along with his father and uncle, visited Machi's home. They brought gifts as tradition demanded, a few gourds of palm wine, a basket of yams and kola nuts to present to Machi's mother. Machi's mother welcomed them kindly in the courtyard of their compound. She offered them wooden stools to sit on and called for Machi to come out and greet the visitors. Meanwhile, an elder neighbor was invited to join as a witness according to custom. The kola nuts were placed on a clean plate and the elder broke one and said a short blessing, thanking God and the ancestors for the day and for the meeting of the two families. At last, Machi stepped out of the house, walking slowly and holding her head high. She was dressed beautifully in a bright blue wrapper around her waist and a matching blouse with a necklace of shiny beads. The visitors watched her approach, and the young suitor's eyes shone with admiration. He had never seen someone so lovely. As the introductions were made, Machi barely smiled. The young man's father spoke politely. "We have heard of this fine daughter of yours and have come to express interest that our son might court her if it pleases you and her." Machi's mother responded graciously, "You are welcome. We are honored by your visit." She then turned to Machi and said, "My daughter, this kind family has come to know you better." Machi looked at the suitor from head to toe. She noticed that his clothes, though clean and neat, were simple and not expensive. His sandals were worn from walking long distances. She remembered someone mentioning that this young man's family tapped palm wine for a living. To Machi, that was not impressive at all. She expected someone of much higher status. Instead of offering the guests a warm smile or polite words, Machi spoke in a cold voice. "Thank you for coming, but I am not interested." There was an awkward silence. The elder who was there coughed gently, thinking perhaps the girl was just shy or didn't know how to respond properly. The young suitor's father tried to smile and said, "My child, you do not have to decide immediately. We would just like to get to know you. Our son is a good man and we believe he would make you happy." The young man himself, blushing and nervous, managed to add, "Yes, I would be honored to have a wife like you." Machi frowned slightly. In her heart, she was annoyed that they were pressing the issue. She decided to speak her mind plainly. "I said I am not interested. I do not wish to marry a palm wine tapper's son." Her mother's eyes widened in embarrassment and anger at her daughter's blunt rudeness. She quickly apologized to the visitors. "Please forgive her. She is still young and foolish." The suitor's father cleared his throat and stood up slowly. He was hurt and offended, but as a well-mannered man, he simply said, "We understand. Thank you for receiving us." The young suitor looked heartbroken. He had arrived with hopes of a happy match, only to be rejected outright. He and his family gathered their gifts, the basket of yams, the untouched gourds of palm wine, and prepared to leave. As they left the compound, Machi did something even more shocking. She did not understand why her mother was forcing. In her proud mind, she believed she had the right to refuse anyone she did not like. So she muttered loudly enough for them to hear as they walked away, "I will only marry someone truly important, maybe a prince or a king. I will not settle for less." The visitors heard these words, and the young man's uncle shook his head in disbelief. The elder neighbor who had witnessed the meeting was also troubled. He looked at Machi sternly and said, "My daughter, you should not speak like that. Every man deserves respect. Pride goes before a fall. Remember that." But Machi tossed her head, turned on her heel, and went back inside without replying. Her mother was left to apologize over and over to the departing guests. After they left, Machi's mother scolded her harshly inside the house. "How could you behave so rudely?" demanded. "Have we not taught you manners? You embarrassed us today. What will people say?" Machi simply replied, "Mama, I cannot pretend. I don't want to marry a poor man. We're a rich family. I deserve someone who is at our level or higher. Why should I be sorry for telling the truth?" Her mother was furious and saddened. She said, "Your father would never have tolerated such disrespect. Wealth and status aren't everything. That young man was polite and decent. You shamed him and his family. This pride of yours will bring you trouble one day, Machi. Mark my words." As her mother spoke, Machi looked away, not wanting to listen. In her heart, she felt justified. She thought her mother was old-fashioned and did not understand that she could use her beauty and family name to marry into an even wealthier or royal family. Machi dreamed of marrying a prince or a king, someone whose status would make her admired and envied even more. The warnings from her mother and the elder went unheeded. Over the next year, most suitors came to Amanze village seeking Machi's hand. A trader who owned a big shop in the town passed through with gifts, but Machi dismissed him as just a shopkeeper. A skilled hunter from a distant village sent word of his interest. Machi laughed and said she didn't want to marry a man who smelled of the forest. Each time her refusals were rude and hurtful. After a while, many people began to hear of Machi's attitude. Some young men decided it was not even worth trying, no matter how beautiful she was. However, one day, a special visitor came to Amanze village. His name was Onoche. He arrived quietly without the usual fanfare that might accompany an important person. In fact, nobody knew that Onoche was anything more than a humble traveler. He wore a simple brown tunic and carried a walking stick. By appearance, he looked like a modest farmer or a man from a village not unlike Amanze. Onoche had actually heard stories of a beautiful maiden named Amachi who lived in Amanze. He was curious and wanted to see her for himself. There was another detail unknown to anyone in Amanze. Onoche was not an ordinary man. He was a prince, the son of a king from a faraway land across the great river. He had chosen to travel in disguise as a common man to find a bride who would love him for who he was, not for his title or wealth. When Onoche came into the village, he did not announce himself as a prince. He first stopped by the village market, looking around and chatting politely with locals to learn more about Amachi and her family. Many villagers, not knowing his real identity, spoke openly. One woman told him, "Oh, you mean Amachi, the pretty one from the hill? Yes, she is indeed beautiful, but be careful, she is very proud." Another man added, "She has turned away many suitors. If you are thinking of meeting her, I hope you have thick skin. She can be rude." Onoche listened quietly, but remained hopeful. He thought perhaps he could still make a good impression with kindness and sincerity. In the late afternoon, Onoche made his way to Amachi's compound. Amachi was sitting outside on a wooden bench under the mango tree, sorting red peppers in a basket for her mother. The sun was low and golden, and the air was filled with the sounds of birds chirping and women returning from the stream with water. Ozioma was also there, sitting on a small stool, helping Amachi with the peppers and chatting softly. Even though Amachi often bossed Ozioma around, Ozioma still spent time with her and helped with tasks when she visited. When Onochi came into the gate of the compound, he greeted them respectfully in the local manner. "Good evening to you." Ozioma looked up and smiled politely. "Good evening, brother. How can we help you?" Amachi also looked up, and seeing a stranger, she raised an eyebrow. She thought he looked ordinary and a bit dusty from travel. Onochi introduced himself with a slight bow. "My name is Onochi. I have traveled from a distant village. I have heard of the beauty and grace of a young woman named Amachi, and I believe I have the honor of speaking with her now." He smiled warmly at Amachi. Amachi was not impressed by his polite words. She noticed he had no gifts with him, not even a kola nut or a bottle of palm wine, which was the usual custom for a serious suitor. He looked like a lone traveler, not a rich man or a prince from a story. Immediately, she assumed he was just another poor man coming to try his luck. She felt irritated that people of such low standing kept coming to seek her hand. Before Amachi could respond, her mother came out of the house, alerted by the voices. She saw the stranger and greeted him kindly. "You are welcome, my son. Who are you and what brings you here?" Onochi respectfully introduced himself again and stated his purpose twinly. "Ma, I am Onochi, from a place far from here. I came because I heard of your daughter's qualities. I would like to get to know her with your permission." I did not reveal more about himself. Amachi's mother, being a polite host, offered him a seat. "Please sit and have some water," she said, gesturing to a bench. Ozioma quickly went to fetch a cup of water for the visitor, as that was the kind thing to do. She brought it and handed it to Onochi with a smile. Onochi thanked her and drank gratefully. All this time, Amachi watched silently, growing more annoyed by the minute. After the initial greetings, her mother thought it best to leave the young people to talk, hoping perhaps that if Amachi gave this man a chance, she might find him likable. So her mother went inside to give them a bit of privacy, though she stayed within earshot, curious and concerned. Amachi turned to Onochi and asked coolly, "You came from far away just to see me? Why?" Onochi looked at her honest, but perhaps naive question and answered, "I heard that you are very beautiful and also wise. I hoped that the stories were true and that I might meet you. Sometimes one must travel far to find something precious." His words were courteous and gentle. Amachi, however, smirked a little. She did not believe he thought she was wise. She suspected he was just flattering her. She replied, "Well, now you have seen me, you can go back and tell others that you met Amachi." Her tone was dismissive. Onochi was a bit taken aback. He had expected maybe shyness or curiosity from such a famed beauty, but her voice sounded proud and rude. Still, he tried again to be friendly. He offered, "Perhaps we can talk a little more. I would like to know about you and I can tell you about myself." Amachi rolled a pepper seed between her fingers and said, "What is there to know? You can see our compound and you know my family is wealthy. What about you? What do you do for a living?" Onochi from afar. Ozioma glanced at Amachi, sensing the rudeness in her friend's tone. She gently touched Amachi's arm as if to signal her to be nicer. Then Ozioma spoke to Onochi, trying to ease the tension. "Please, forgive her," she said kindly. "She has had a long day. We were at the market earlier and she's a bit tired." Ozioma was making an excuse so Onochi wouldn't feel so insulted. Onochi appreciated Ozioma's attempt at kindness. He smiled at her, then answered Amachi's question. "I am a farmer," he said. "My family grows yams and vegetables, and we have goats and chickens. We work hard and we value honesty and kindness. I may not be a rich man, but I have a loving family and we are comfortable. I came in simple clothes because I wanted to humbly ask for a chance to know you." When Amachi heard "I am a farmer," she nearly laughed out loud. A farmer, she thought. How dare a mere farmer dream of marrying me? She stood up suddenly, letting the basket of peppers tip over, some of them rolling onto the ground. "A farmer?" she said, her voice full of scorn. "A farmer? So you have no titles, no riches? You just dig in the dirt and chase chickens all day, and you thought you could marry me? Onochi stood as well, surprised by her sudden anger. There is honor in farming, he replied calmly, trying not to lose his temper. Our people need farmers to survive. I am proud of what I do. Amachi shook her head and looked at him up and down with disdain. I am not interested in marrying a poor farmer, she stated bluntly. Go and find a wife among your kind. I deserve someone better, perhaps a prince or a man of great wealth, not you. Her words were like sharp knives. Ozioma gasped quietly. Amachi, she exclaimed, her voice filled with shock and dismay. She could not believe her friend was speaking so cruelly to a visitor who had been nothing but respectful since he arrived. Amachi's mother, who had stepped inside briefly to prepare a small tray of groundnut and sliced fruit for the guest, came out just in time to hear her daughter's harsh words. She nearly dropped the tray she was carrying. Amachi, her mother scolded sharply. What are you saying? But Onochi had heard enough. His face had fallen when Amachi insulted him. He felt a mix of humiliation and disappointment. He had traveled with hope in his heart to find a wonderful bride, and now he had been rejected and ridiculed. Keeping his dignity, Onochi bowed slightly and said quietly, I am sorry to have bothered you. I will take my leave now. He turned to Amachi's mother and said respectfully, Thank you for your hospitality, Ma. I wish you and your household well. Then, without another word, he began walking out of the compound, using his stick to steady himself, his head held high, even as his heart ached. Amachi's mother was furious and embarrassed. She called out, Please, young man, wait, hoping to apologize on behalf of her family. But Onochi did not pause. He left the gate, disappearing into the orange glow of the late afternoon. As soon as he was gone, Machi's mother rounded on her daughter. Have you completely lost your mild, child? How could you treat a guest like that? Where are your manners? She was so angry that for a moment words failed her. She just pointed towards the house and said, Go inside, now. Machi, arms crossed defiantly, marched into the house. She was upset, but not at herself. She was angry that her mother was siding with the stranger. In Machi's mind, the fault was not hers. She thought, why is Mama so angry? That man was just a nobody, and I told him the truth. I want to marry a prince and I won't settle. She failed to see how terribly she had behaved. Outside, Ozioma felt tears in her eyes. She was ashamed of what had happened. She looked at Machi's mother and said softly, Ma, I will go and check on that young man. I feel I must apologize to him. Machi's mother nodded, weary and sad. Please do, my dear, and tell him I am so sorry as well. I don't know what to do with that girl anymore. This pride, it will destroy her if she's not careful. She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, feeling a great burden of worry over her daughter's attitude. Ozioma hurried out of the compound to find Onoche. She saw him a short way down the path, walking slowly. Ozioma ran to catch up with him. Brother Onoche, please wait, she called. Onoche stopped and turned. He recognized Ozioma, the kind girl who had given him water, and tried to soothe the situation. He tried to smile, though sadness was plain in his eyes. Yes, he said quietly. Ozioma was a bit out of breath. She stood in front of him, her hands clasped in respect. I am so sorry for the way my friend spoke to you. Please forgive her. She's not usually this harsh. I don't know what got into her. You did not deserve those words. Onoche looked at the earnest face of Ozioma. The setting sun cast a soft glow on her gentle features. He felt some of his bitterness melt away at her kindness. He replied, It's not your fault. You have nothing to apologize for. You are very kind to me, and so was your friend's mother. I see that not everyone here thinks like she does. Ozioma's eyes were full of pity and embarrassment. I am deeply ashamed. I hope you won't think poorly of our village because of this. Actually, she hesitated, but then continued. Machi has become very proud in recent years, but I promise you, not all of us are like that. Please don't judge our people by what you experienced today. Onoche nodded. I understand, he said. You don't need to worry. I can see with my own eyes that you are different. Thank you for coming after me to say these words. It means a lot. For a moment, both of them stood there on the village path, not sure what more to say. The sounds of the early evening were around them, distant laughter of children, a mother calling her child home, and crickets beginning to chirp as dusk settled. Finally, Onoche spoke softly. "Miss, I realize I don't even know your name." Ozioma answered, giving a small smile. "Ozioma," Onoche repeated her name gently. "You have a beautiful heart, Ozioma. You seem like a true friend and a good person." Ozioma felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. She had not expected kind words from this man after what happened. She had simply come to do what she felt was right. Onoche said in a gentle voice, "I wish you a safe journey, and I pray you find the happiness you are looking for. Perhaps our friend Machi is not the one, but I know there will be someone worthy of your good heart." Onoche found himself touched by Ozioma's words. He had come looking for a bride in Machi, but here was another young woman who showed him true kindness. He realized that Ozioma's eyes were kind and her smile was warm and true. Though she was not dressed in fine clothes as Machi and not adorned with fancy beads, in that moment, Onoche saw a different kind of beauty in Ozioma, the beauty of her character shining through. "Thank you, Ozioma," he said with a graceful bow of his head. "People like you make the world better. I will remember your name." With that, Onoche turned and continued on his way out of the village, his figure slowly blending into the dim evening light. Ozioma stood there for a while after he left, thinking about Onoche. Her heart felt a mix of sadness and something new she could not quite describe. Perhaps admiration for the humble, polite traveler who had been treated so poorly. She sighed and walked back to Machi's house slowly. When Ozioma returned, Machi's mother asked anxiously, "Did you find him?" "Yes," Ozioma replied. "I apologized. He said it was all right and that he understood. He has gone on his way now." Machi's mother shook her head, troubled. She thanked Ozioma for her effort. Ozioma decided it was best for her to go home then, so Machi's mother wouldn't have to worry about hosting her as well on this stressful evening. Ozioma promised to come check on them the next day. That night, in Ozioma's home, Ozioma lay on her mat trying to sleep, but her mind kept drifting to Onoche, his calm face, how he still held his head up even after being insulted. She wondered what his life was truly like coming from far away, and she also worried deeply for her friend Machi. Will Machi ever change? She whispered to herself in the darkness. She feared that if Machi continued down this path of pride, something bad would happen to her. Ozioma was not one to wish ill on anyone, especially not her best friend. But the elders often say that when you insult people and think too highly of yourself, life has a way of teaching you lessons. She prayed silently in her heart, asking God to guide Machi and soften her heart. Meanwhile, in Machi's house that night, a different scene took place. Machi's mother tried once more to speak to her daughter about her behavior. After dinner, as they lit the oil lamp and the crickets sang outside, her mother sat beside Machi and said in a sad but calm voice, "My child, what you did today was wrong. I fear that no good will come of this attitude. You cannot continue to insult everyone who comes near you. One day you will drive away all that is good in your life." But Machi only shrugged. "Mama, none of those men were good enough for me. Why do you worry so much? I am still here with you. I am not starving. I have fine clothes and everything I want. If a prince is destined for me, he will come. I am willing to wait for the best." Her mother looked at her with sad eyes. "Not everything that glitters is gold, my daughter. Sometimes the best people come in humble clothes. You judge too quickly by what you see. Humility is a virtue. Pride can blind you." Machi yawned as if bored. "Mama, I think you are worrying over nothing. Let's not fight. I'm tired. Good night," she said, laying down on her mat to sleep. Her mother wanted to say more, but she realized it was useless for now. She blew out the lamp and left Machi to rest, silently praying that her daughter would learn before it was too late. Little did Machi know that the humble farmer she had chased away that day was in fact the prince she had always dreamed of. Fate was already weaving a lesson for her, one she would soon have to face. In the weeks that followed Onochi's visit, life in Amanze village returned to its normal rhythm for most people. But under the surface, some things had begun to change quietly. Onochi, the traveler who was secretly a prince, could not forget the kindness and gentleness of Ozioma. As he journeyed back toward his home, his thoughts kept returning to her warm smile and the concern in her eyes when she apologized to him. He realized that he had found something unexpected, a young woman who was beautiful in heart and soul, even if she wasn't the one he originally came to find. A couple of months after his first visit, Onochi returned to the area, this time intending to see Ozioma again. He planned his return carefully. He knew that if he came openly as a prince, word would spread quickly and possibly reach Mmachi or others who might interfere or cause Ozioma distress. So, once more, he dressed in simple clothes as a common man. He brought with him one trusted friend from his father's palace, a loyal guard who would pose as his cousin during the trip. Together, they made their way back to Amanze. It was a quiet afternoon when Onochi found Ozioma again. She was at the big weekly market in a neighboring village, helping her mother sell fresh vegetables and groundnuts. Ozioma was arranging gourds of palm oil and baskets of okra on a mat when she noticed a familiar face among the crowd. It was Onochi, standing a few stalls away looking at some fabric that a trader was selling. Her heart skipped a beat in surprise. She hadn't expected to ever see him again, especially not in the busy market. Onochi looked up and caught her gaze. A broad smile spread across his face and he approached her. "Good day, Ozioma," he said warmly. "It is good to see you again." Ozioma blinked and then smiled a little shyly. "Onochi, you came back," she said in wonder. Her mother, who was sitting nearby selling produce, looked up curiously. Ozioma quickly introduced him. "Mama, this is the kind man I told you about, the one who visited Machi and whom I went to apologize to. His name is Onochi." Onochi greeted Ozioma's mother with respect. "Good afternoon, Ma. It's a pleasure to meet you." Her mother returned the greeting kindly, though she was surprised. She remembered Ozioma mentioning that incident and was curious why this young man was here now. After a few customers moved along, Onochi quietly explained, "I had some business in this area and I thought I might see how you are doing. Last time I left in a hurry and realized I didn't properly thank you for your kindness." Ozioma felt a warm flush in her cheeks. "There is no need to thank me," she said softly. "Anyone with a heart would have done the same." They continued to talk for a short while. Onochi even helped by handing a basket of vegetables to an elderly woman who was buying from Ozioma's mother. He acted just like a helpful friend. Ozioma's mother watched him thoughtfully. She noticed the way her daughter's face lit up as they spoke. A mother can often tell when something is happening in her child's heart. Before leaving, Onochi asked if he could visit Ozioma's family later to properly greet her father as well. Ozioma's father was usually at the farm during the day. Her mother agreed, though she still wondered about Onochi's intentions. That evening, Onochi and his companion, whom he introduced as his cousin, Chidi, came to Ozioma's house. They brought a small gift, a few pieces of smoked fish, and a little bag of salt. Simple but thoughtful offerings for the family. Ozioma's father welcomed them, grateful for the gift, as salt and good fish were always appreciated. They all sat outside under the moonlight, talking and getting to know one another. The conversation was pleasant. Onochi spoke of his village, not revealing it was actually a kingdom, and said his parents were doing well. He mentioned how he cared about finding a good partner who valued family and kindness. With each story shared and each answer given, their connection grew stronger. After that night, Onochi did not leave immediately. He and his guard, Chidi, stayed in the area for a few more days. Each day, Onochi found a reason to spend time with Ozioma. One morning, he showed up on the path to the stream just as Ozioma was returning with water, and he offered to carry her pot back home for her. Another day, he helped Ozioma's family on their farm, surprising her father with how hardworking he was. While they planted cassava stems, he chatted and laughed with Ozioma, making the work light and enjoyable. Villagers who saw them together began to wonder who this stranger was that seemed to have taken such a liking to Ozioma. Some assumed he might be a relative from another town since they didn't recognize him as one of the suitors who had come for Omachi. All this time, Ozioma kept Omachi in her thoughts. She felt uneasy that she was spending time with the very man who had first come for Omachi. Each time she saw Omachi in the village, her friend still seemed as proud and distant as ever, not showing any interest in Onochi at all. In fact, Omachi rarely asked about Ozioma's life these days. She was too busy thinking of her own plans and dreams of finding a royal suitor. So Ozioma did not know how to tell her friend about this growing friendship with Onochi. She was afraid Omachi would either laugh at her or accuse her of betrayal. Thus, Ozioma kept everything secret, sharing only with her mother, who quietly supported her and trusted her judgment. On the last day of Onochi's stay this time, he asked to speak with Ozioma alone. They met under the old mango tree near her house in the late afternoon, when the sun was golden and the shadows were long. Onochi's face was serious but gentle. "Ozioma, I have something I need to tell you about myself," he began. "I haven't been completely open about who I am." Ozioma looked worried. She wondered if he might confess something bad, like already having a wife, or that he was leaving and not coming back. She braced herself and said, "You can tell me anything." He took a deep breath and revealed the truth. "I trust you, so I will tell you the truth. My full name is Prince Onochi, and I am the son of King Arinze of a far-away kingdom." He looked at her to see her reaction. Ozioma's eyes widened in shock. She opened her mouth, but at first no words came out. A prince? The humble farmer she thought she knew was actually a prince? She immediately remembered all the times Mmachi boasted she would marry a prince someday, and here stood a prince who came in disguise. You are a prince?" she finally managed to stammer. "Yes," Onochi replied. "I came to Amanze disguised as a common man because I wanted to find a woman who had a pure heart, someone who would love me for me, not for my crown. I found that person in you, Ozioma. When we first met, you showed me nothing but kindness and respect, even though you thought I was just a poor farmer. That is how I knew you were special." Ozioma's heart was pounding. She could hardly believe what she heard. A part of her felt joy because she had come to care deeply for Onochi over these past weeks, but another part felt fear and confusion. She lowered her eyes and said quietly, "But Onochi, or I should say my prince, I'm just an ordinary village girl. I'm not from a royal family. Why would you choose me?" Onochie reached out gently and took her hand, a bold gesture in their culture, but he wanted her to feel his sincerity. "Because I have seen your heart," he said tenderly. "You are humble, loving and strong. You care for your family and friends. You value people for who they are. That is worth more to me than any title or wealth. If you accept me, I promise to cherish you and make you happy." Ozioma saw tears gathering in her eyes. "This feels like a dream," she whispered. I have feelings for you too. But what about my family? What about Machi? She was my friend and you came for her first." Onochie nodded, understanding her concerns. "I will speak to your family properly," he assured. "As for Machi, I came for her only because of what I heard of her beauty. I did not know her then. When I met her, it was clear she and I could not be. You owe her nothing in this. She turned me away and insulted me. I do not hold anger towards her. In fact, if not for her actions, I might never have noticed the goodness in you. Sometimes fate works in funny ways." Ozioma still felt a little guilty, but she realized he was right that Machi never cared for Onochie beyond seeing him as unworthy. Perhaps she was worrying too much. In her kind heart, she just did not want anyone to be hurt or upset. But now this was about her own happiness too. She looked into Onochie's eyes and saw sincerity and love there. Softly, she said, "Yes, I will marry you, if my parents agree." Onochie broke into a joyful smile. He squeezed her hand then quickly let go, mindful of being proper. "Thank you, Ozioma," he said, almost laughing with relief. "You have made me very happy." True to his word, that evening, Onochie spoke privately with Ozioma's parents. He revealed his identity to them as well, showing a royal pendant he carried as proof. Ozioma's parents were astonished. To them, it was as if a tale from the village storyteller was coming true in their own home. A prince asking for their daughter's hand. Her mother cried tears of joy and disbelief. Her father was cautious at first, concerned about how their daughter would fit into a royal life. But Onochie assured them that Ozioma would be treated with respect and that his parents would welcome her once they learned of her kind character. Because Onochie had come in secret and needed to return to inform his father, they decided to arrange the marriage quietly and quickly. They agreed that Onochie would go back to his kingdom to speak to his family and make preparations, and that in a short time he would return to Amanze to wed Ozioma formally. They all thought it best to keep the news very private until the day came. Only Ozioma's immediate family knew the full truth. They kept it even from their extended relatives and certainly from the villagers, fearing that news might reach Machi or cause unnecessary drama before everything was settled. During the waiting period, Ozioma continued her daily life as usual. She saw Machi now and then, but things between them had grown a bit distant. Each time she felt the secret like a weight on her tongue, wanting to tell her friend something so important. But she remembered how Machi had insulted Onochie and how she often boasted she deserved a prince. Ozioma knew that the truth would deeply hurt Machi. And maybe, just maybe, a small part of Ozioma also felt a bit of resentment. She had been hurt by Machi many times, and a tiny voice in her thought that perhaps Machi did not deserve to know of the happiness coming to someone she had looked down on. But Ozioma quickly pushed such uncharitable thoughts away, feeling guilty. Mostly, she stayed silent out of love and concern, not wanting to cause her friend pain or anger before it was necessary. Finally, the day arrived. Onochie returned to Amanze, this time with a small group of his people. He brought his parents' blessings, fine clothes, and a few relatives to represent his family for the marriage ceremony. To honor Ozioma's family, he decided to have a simple traditional wedding in Amanze before taking her to his kingdom for a larger celebration. He wanted her people to witness and bless the union, even if it was in a modest way. The morning of the wedding was bright and clear. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers and fresh hay. Ozioma woke up early with her stomach fluttering with nerves and excitement. Her mother and a few neighbor women helped her get ready. They tied a beautiful red and gold wrapper around her waist and a matching blouse. They adorned her with coral beads on her neck and wrists and tied a delicate headscarf on her head. Ozioma could hardly recognize herself in the small mirror. She looked like a princess, even though she still felt like the simple village girl inside. Her mother hugged her, trying not to cry, and said, "My daughter, you look so beautiful. Your kindness and humility have brought you blessings. Today you will become a wife. I am so happy for you." Ozioma's father and a couple of uncles arranged the small ceremony. Onochie had asked that it be kept small, only close family members and the necessary village elders as witnesses. Still, in a village, it is hard for anything to remain completely secret. Curious eyes had seen the visitors arriving the night before, carrying finely woven bags and wearing unusually fine clothes. A whisper started spreading that something was happening at Ozioma's household. Machi, that morning, was unaware of the important events unfolding at her friend's home. She had been somewhat avoiding Ozioma lately, maybe sensing that Ozioma was often busy or preoccupied, though she didn't know why. Machi spent the morning in her own routine, which now felt empty. She had no suitors calling and no important chores. She wandered through the market aimlessly, just to pass time, feeling a little bored and lonely. It was at the market that Mmachi first heard that something was afoot. Two women were chatting excitedly by a tomato store. "Have you heard?" one said. "Some important people came to Old Ikenachi's compound last night. That's Ozioma's family. I heard there's a marriage happening." Mmachi's ears perked up. A marriage at Ozioma's house? She thought maybe a distant cousin of Ozioma was getting married. She was curious since Ozioma happened to mention any wedding to her. She casually moved closer to the women, pretending to look at tomatoes while listening. Another woman said, "I saw the young man, very handsome and well-dressed. They say he's from a far place. Could it be that Ozioma is the bride? I saw her this morning. She was dressed up like I've never seen before." Mmachi's heart began to thump. Ozioma the bride? Dressed up? A handsome man from far away? None of it made sense. Why would Ozioma not tell her if she was getting married? And who was this groom? Her mind raced and a cold, nervous feeling crept into her stomach. She suddenly thought of Onoche, the traveler from far away. But no, it couldn't be him, could it? He had left and she had chased him off. Plus, Ozioma wouldn't marry a poor farmer. Unless... Mmachi quickly paid for a few tomatoes, barely listening to the price the vendor told her, and hurried towards Ozioma's home on the other side of the village. As she went, she caught snatches of other conversations. Yes, they will do a small wine-carrying ceremony. I heard he might even be a prince. No, that can't be true. Maybe he's just a rich trader. Either way, Ozioma is lucky. Shh, not so loud. It was supposed to be secret. The word prince made Mmachi stop in her tracks for an instant. A prince? Did someone say prince? Her mouth went dry. She started to walk even faster, almost running now. When Mmachi arrived at Ozioma's compound, she saw a small gathering of people under the shade of the mango tree. There were a few village elders, Ozioma's close family members, and about half a dozen well-dressed strangers. Among them, she spotted Onoche, but she barely recognized him at first because he was dressed in magnificent traditional attire. He wore an embroidered shirt with gold patterns and a red cap on his head, and around his neck hung a string of coral beads. He looked every inch like a prince, or at least a very wealthy man. Standing next to him, holding a cup of palm wine with nervous hands, was Ozioma, beautiful in her red and gold outfit and coral beads. It was indeed a marriage ceremony, the traditional wine-carrying part of it. Mmachi arrived just at the crucial moment of the ceremony. She watched from a short distance, half hidden behind a flowering hibiscus bush, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might burst. She saw Ozioma scanning the small crowd shyly with the cup of palm wine in her hands, as is the custom for the bride to seek out her groom and offer him a drink. Onoche stepped forward, smiling, and Ozioma walked to him. Then Ozioma knelt and offered the cup to him. Onoche took the cup and drank from it, sealing their union while everyone present clapped softly and some gave joyful ululations. It felt like a clap of thunder in Mmachi's ears. Her vision blurred with tears as the reality struck her like a blow. Onoche, the man she had insulted and sent away, was actually a prince all along, and he was here, marrying Ozioma, her best friend, the humble girl whom she had always considered beneath her in some way. Ozioma was marrying the prince, the very dream of marrying royalty that Mmachi had cherished and boasted about was happening right now, but to someone else. To the very person who had always stood by her, whom she had taken for granted. Mmachi's legs felt weak. She stepped out from behind the bush, not even caring now if anyone saw her. Some of the guests noticed her. Ozioma's mother saw her, and a look of pity and concern crossed her face, knowing this must be a terrible shock. Ozioma followed her mother's gaze and turned to see Mmachi standing there. Ozioma's eyes widened and her face filled with worry. She hadn't wanted Machi to find out like this. For a long moment, the two friends just stared at each other across the short distance. One was dressed as a bride, radiant and anxious. The other stood empty-handed, trembling and stunned. Onoche, seeing Ozioma's attention drift, also turned and saw Machi. His expression was calm but serious. It was hard to tell what he was thinking as he looked at her. Machi felt as if the whole world was spinning around her. Her chest heaved and a sob rose from her throat. She couldn't hold back her tears. Without thinking further, she turned and fled from the scene, running away from the compound. She could not bear it. The shock, the pain, the regret, it was too much. She ran and ran until she reached her own home, where she collapsed on the veranda, sobbing uncontrollably. Her mother, who was also just heard the news from neighbors and was on her way to find out what was happening, found Machi there crying like a lost child. She knelt down and gathered her daughter in her arms. Between choked sobs, Machi cried out, "Mama, it was him. It was him all along, and now he's marrying Ozioma. He was a prince, Mama, a prince, and I sent him away. I called him a poor farmer. Oh, what have I done?" Her mother's heart broke at the sight of her usually proud daughter, now weeping in despair. She gently rocked Machi and stroked her hair. Though a part of her was angry at how things turned out because of her daughter's arrogance, this was not the time to say, "I told you so." Her daughter's cries were the sound of a pride shattered and a heart breaking. All she could do was hold her and say softly, "It's okay, my daughter. Let it out. I know, it's hard." Tears gathered in her mother's own eyes, for she knew that a wound like this does not heal easily or quickly. That day was a dark and lonely day for Machi. While the small wedding concluded and Ozioma departed with her new husband and his people after quick farewells, Machi remained at home, devastated. She refused to see anyone or eat anything. Villagers murmured among themselves about this dramatic turn of events. Some felt genuinely sorry for Machi, despite her past pride, saying, the poor girl, this will surely humble her now." Others thought it was a fitting lesson. She always said she wanted a prince, and she drove one away with her own behavior. Life can be cruel, but perhaps she brought this on herself. For Ozioma, the day was bittersweet. She married the man she loved and was filled with joy to be by Onochi's side as his wife. Yet she was deeply sad to have hurt her friend. As they traveled away later that day, she cried softly in the carriage that took them beyond Amanze. Onochi comforted her, understanding the pain of living without a happy resolution with Machi. He promised Ozioma that someday, if fate allowed, they would make peace with Machi. And so, Ozioma left the village as a new bride, heading to a new life as the wife of a prince, and eventually a queen in his land. Amanze village buzzed with the tale for a long time, how the humble girl became a princess and how pride had cost the other girl dearly. Everyone knew that things would never be the same for Machi after that day. In the days and weeks after Ozioma's wedding, Machi fell into a deep sorrow. She stayed mostly indoors, refusing to see even the few friends she had left. Her pride had not only been hurt, it had been completely shattered. For a long time, she cried whenever she was alone, mourning not just the loss of a chance to marry a prince, but also the loss of her best friend. Ozioma was gone, far away, and Machi felt that by her own actions she had driven away the one person who truly cared for her. At first, Machi's pride tried to protect itself by turning into anger. Sometimes she felt more angry than sad. She would think to herself in bitterness, "It's not fair. That should have been me. Ozioma took what was meant for me." In those moments, she blamed Ozioma in her mind, calling her a traitor, or thinking that Ozioma must have secretly planned to take Onochi from the start. But whenever such dark thoughts came, they were soon pushed away by the truth shining in her memory, the memory of how kind Ozioma had always been. Deep down, Machi knew that no one had stolen anything from her. It was her own pride that pushed everyone away and destroyed her chance at happiness. The villagers watched as the once proud, dazzling Machi became quiet and withdrawn. No longer did she walk through the village with her chin high and a boastful sway. Instead, if she went out at all, it was with eyes downcast and a face that looked as if all joy had drained away. Some people felt pity and offered gentle words if they saw her, saying things like, "Be strong, my dear," or "Better days will come." Others, however, still felt resentment for her past behavior and thought this was a well-deserved lesson, so they kept their distance. As time passed, no new suitors came seeking Machi's hand in marriage. The story of how she had insulted a prince spread beyond Amanze to many other villages and towns. It became almost like a folk tale that people told, often with added spices. There was once a girl so proud that she chased away a prince who came to marry her. Whether all the details were correct or not, the effect was clear. Men who might have been interested in marrying Machi now hesitated or stayed away completely. Machi slowly realized that if she ever wanted a husband, she might have to seek one herself or accept someone she once would have considered beneath her. So, as months turned into a couple of years, she began to attend more social gatherings, not to show off as before, but in hopes of meeting someone who would still have her. There was a yearly harvest festival in Amanze village, where people from neighboring villages came to celebrate and dance. Machi went that year, dressed nicely but without her old arrogance. She tried to smile and talk to some young men. One of them was a trader from another village. She made an effort to be pleasant and charming. The young man was polite to her, but later Machi overheard him telling a friend, "She is pretty, but isn't she the one who drove away a prince? If I marry her, who knows if her pride will rise again and bring trouble? Better not." Hearing that whisper felt like a knife to her heart. In another instance, a widower who was a few years older showed some interest in her. He was not a rich man, just a palm wine tapper like that first suitor, but a decent person with 2 small children. At this point, Machi thought, maybe this is my chance to at least have a family. She tried to be on her best behavior and even visited his home to help his elderly mother with chores, hoping to show that she could be a good wife and stepmother. For a short while, it seemed like he might propose to her, but in the end, the widower changed his mind and married another young woman from a different village. Some said that he was warned by people about Machi's past pride and he decided he didn't want any trouble. Whether that was true or just village gossip, Machi faced another disappointment. Each failure, each whisper she heard about herself in the marketplace was like salt rubbed into a wound. She realized that people had not forgotten her prideful behavior. It stuck to her like a shadow she could not shake. And indeed, even though she was outwardly much quieter now, in her heart, there was still a trace of that old pride that made her feel ashamed to openly beg forgiveness or show her change. Instead of apologizing to those she had hurt, she mostly isolated herself, which did not help change people's opinions of her. Meanwhile, Machi's mother grew older and her health began to decline. The stress and sadness of seeing her only child in such a miserable state weighed on her. She tried to encourage Machi, saying, "My child, don't lose hope. Just be good and patient. Perhaps God will still bring you someone or something to make you happy." Machi would give a weak smile to her mother, but in her heart she didn't truly believe it anymore. One rainy season, Machi's mother fell seriously ill. She developed a deep cough that would not go away and grew very weak. Machi cared for her day and night, at last putting someone else fully before herself. She cooked her mother's meals, cleaned her, gave her medicine, and stayed by her side. In those moments, watching her mother's once strong hands now trembling and frail, Machi felt overwhelming guilt. She remembered how her mother had always stood by her, even when she was wrong. how her mother had tried to warn her so many times. One humid afternoon, as she sat by her mother's bedside wiping her feverish forehead with a cool cloth, Machi burst into tears. "Mama, I am so sorry," she cried softly. "I have brought you so much grief. If I had listened to you, maybe you would have seen me married with children by now, and you wouldn't worry so much. I am sorry for all the times I disrespected you and others." Her mother, eyes tired and glassy, reached a weak hand out to touch Amachi's wet cheek. "My daughter," she whispered, "I have prayed for you every day. I know you regret. It is never too late to change. My only wish is to see you truly happy and at peace. Promise me you will live the rest of your life with a humble heart and a kind spirit. That way, even if you have no husband or child, you will never be alone. People will love you for who you are." Tears streamed down Amachi's face as she held her mother's hand. "I promise, Mama. I will try. I will change. Please get well so we can see better days together," she pleaded, though deep down she feared her mother might not recover. But it was her mother's time to join the ancestors. A few nights later, after a brief, peaceful sleep, Machi's mother passed away quietly with her hand in her daughter's during the early hours of morning when the rooster was just starting to crow. Machi felt the hand go limp and knew her mother was gone. A wail of sorrow burst from her chest, echoing through the stillness before dawn. Neighbors woke and came rushing to offer comfort and help, for everyone respected Mama Machi and many loved her. Burying her mother was the hardest thing Machi had ever had to do. As the only child, she had to arrange the funeral, but many neighbors pitched in, cooking and helping, both out of respect for her mother and pity for Machi, who was now alone. The entire village attended, for her mother had been loved by all. As the red earth was gently shoveled over her mother's grave under the big Udala fruit tree, Machi felt utterly alone in the world. When all the rites were done and people left, she remained by the grave, kneeling in the dirt, crying and begging for forgiveness from her mother, from God, from anyone she had hurt. She cried until the sun set and darkness covered the land, and a kind old woman finally led her home. In the days after the funeral, a quiet emptiness settled in Machi's life. The big compound on the hill felt echoing and hollow. The beautiful clothes and jewelry she once treasured meant little to her now. They were kept in a chest, gathering dust. She found a wooden box where her mother kept family keepsakes, and inside it a faded photograph of her father and mother together, with baby Machi on her mother's lap. Seeing it broke her heart all over again. "What a happy time that must have been," she whispered to herself. "I have wasted so many years thinking only of myself." One morning, about a month after her mother's passing, Machi woke up at dawn to the sound of birds singing. The air was cool and the sky was turning light. She sat up and realized something. She was still alive, and life was going on around her. She remembered her promise to her mother to live with a humble heart and a kind spirit. She decided that from that day on, she would do her best to become a different person, the kind of person her mother had hoped she would be. The first thing she did was step out of her compound and walk to the village stream at the time when other women and girls would be there fetching water. She had avoided this place or gone at odd hours to avoid people due to her shame, but that morning she went when it was busy. As she approached, some of the women saw Machi coming and grew quiet, perhaps expecting her to act proud or say something rude. Machi carried a water pot of her own. Quietly, she joined the line of women waiting their turn at the stream. A few greeted her out of habit, and she mustered a small polite smile and greeted them back, saying, "Good morning." This simple friendliness surprised them because in the past, Machi might not have bothered to greet. After filling her pot, as she turned to leave, she saw one of the women struggling to lift 2 heavy pots of water into a basket to carry on her head. In the past, Machi would have walked by, thinking it wasn't her problem, but this time she set down her own pot and offered, "Let me help you with one of those." The woman, surprised, allowed Machi to take one pot. Together, they lifted it. Then Machi helped carry that woman's second water pot on her own head while carrying her own in the other hand. They walked back towards the village together. Along the way, the woman thanked her and made small talk. Machi responded kindly, asking about the woman's family. This simple act of helping made Machi feel a spark of warmth in her heart, a feeling she had not felt in a long time, the feeling of being useful to someone and connecting as part of the community. Word slowly spread in Amanze that Machi had changed. She began to greet elders properly every morning. Sometimes she even went out of her way to visit an elder or a neighbor who was ill, bringing them food or medicine. When there was communal work, like clearing the village paths or cleaning the marketplace, Machi showed up with a hoe and broom to join others, working as hard as anyone else. In the past, she would have stayed home and perhaps sent a servant or avoided it entirely. At first, people were suspicious. They thought, is she pretending? Does she want something from us? But as weeks turned into months and months into years, it became clear that Machi's change was real. She never bragged or boasted anymore. If anything, she often spoke less and listened more to others. She would sit with the women at the marketplace, helping them sell their goods and sharing advice or recipes. She would join the men and women during planting season, offering some of her land to be used for communal crops to help feed the poor. Many were stunned when she gave away a portion of her stored yam harvest one year to families who had a bad harvest. This was something the old Machi would never have done. One by one, people forgave her and welcomed her back into their hearts. The young girls who once avoided her now came to her for guidance. She was older now, and they saw that she carried herself not as a haughty princess, but as a wise auntie in the village. Machi began to tell the younger generation about her own life experiences. She would say to a girl who showed signs of vanity or a boy who was getting arrogant, "I was once very foolish and proud. I hurt my best friend and lost something precious because of pride. Please do not be like me. Be humble and kind, and your life will be much happier." When she spoke like this, some who had known her in her youth would nod in agreement and add their own words. Yes, listen to her story. It is true. Pride nearly destroyed her life. There was no mockery in their voices now, just a sincere hope that the young ones would learn the lesson without having to live it. And the young people did listen because they could see before their eyes the example of Auntie Machi, once rich and beautiful and proud, who ended up lonely and sad, and then found peace only by becoming humble and good. Machi found a new kind of happiness in serving others and being involved in village life. Though she never married and never had children of her own, the children of the village began to treat her like a beloved aunt or grandmother as the years went by. She helped settle little quarrels between them, told them folk tales under the moonlight, and taught the girls how to weave mats or mold clay pots, skills she herself took time to learn later in life from other women. If a neighbor was sick, Machi would come by to cook and clean for them. If a family was grieving a loss, she was there to share their tears and comfort them. She had turned her life of loneliness into a life of giving, and in return, she earned love and respect from the community. Years rolled by, and Machi grew grey hair and wrinkles. By the time she was in her 60s, she was hardly the same person who had once been the arrogant belle of Amanze. Yet, in a way, she became beautiful in another manner. The beauty of kindness shone through her smile and her eyes. People often said, "Machi has such a good soul now," and they respected her for it. She had truly redeemed herself in the eyes of the community. Still, in quiet moments, Machi would think of Ozioma. She wondered where her old friend was and how her life had turned out. Amanze village occasionally heard news through travelers. They heard that Ozioma was living well in a far kingdom, blessed with children, and that she was loved by her husband and the people there. This made Mmachi happy for her friend, even as it brought a pang of longing and regret. Mmachi often wished she could see Ozioma just once more, to apologize face to face, to show her how much she had changed, and simply to hug her like a friend again. It remained an unspoken wish in her heart as she went about her days. One bright morning, many years later, news arrived in Amanze that made Mmachi's hands tremble when she heard it. A messenger came from Ozioma's distant land with word for Ozioma's remaining relatives. Ozioma would be coming to Amanze for a visit after so many years away. The reason, however, was a sad one. Ozioma's elderly mother, who had lived with relatives in another town, had passed away, and Ozioma was coming for her mother's funeral. Along with this news, villagers learned another fact that made them proud and amazed. Ozioma was now indeed a queen. Her husband, Prince Onoche, had become king after his father's death, making Ozioma the queen of their kingdom. The village buzzed with both sorrow for the loss of Ozioma's mother and excitement at Ozioma's homecoming. Though it was for a funeral, they also saw it as a chance to welcome back someone who had made their village famous by her story. Mmachi's heart pounded when she heard that Ozioma was coming. She immediately decided she would do everything in her power to help with the funeral arrangements and to be there for Ozioma's family. She was both eager and anxious at the thought of seeing Ozioma again after so long. Mmachi helped the villagers clean the compound, cook food for mourners, and set up mats and chairs for visitors who would come for the funeral. All the while, her stomach fluttered with nerves. Would Ozioma want to see her? Would she forgive her? Did she know how much Mmachi had changed? Many thoughts swirled in her mind, but she stayed focused on being useful. On the day Ozioma arrived, the village received her with a quiet, respectful welcome because it was a mourning occasion. She did not come with any loud display of riches as she was in mourning. Only a small group of her attendants accompanied her. Still, everyone could see that she carried herself like royalty. She stepped down from a carriage, a small cart pulled by horses that had carried her most of the way since the village paths were narrow. Around her were a few attendants. Ozioma was now a woman in her 60s as well. Her face had matured, but the same warmth and grace shone through her eyes. She wore a simple black dress for mourning with a matching headscarf. Even in this plain clothing, she had an air of grace and dignity. Mmachi stood among the villagers who had gathered quietly to welcome Ozioma and offer condolences. As Ozioma greeted her family members with tears and received the sympathetic greetings of old neighbors, Mmachi hung back slightly, suddenly feeling unsure of herself. She watched Ozioma from a distance. To Mmachi, Ozioma still looked beautiful, not because of fine clothes or jewels, but because of the warmth and grace that radiated from her. That same gentle smile, even in sadness, was on Ozioma's face as she spoke softly with those around her. After the burial of Ozioma's mother, later in the afternoon, people gathered in the compound to eat a modest meal and share memories. Mmachi was busy serving food and passing cups of water to guests. She kept an eye on Ozioma, waiting for the right moment to approach. She didn't want to intrude while Ozioma was with her family and other elders. It was Ozioma who noticed Mmachi first. As Mmachi turned from handing a bowl of rice to someone, she saw Ozioma standing a few steps away looking at her intently. It seems one of the relatives had quietly pointed Mmachi out, saying, "That's Mmachi over there." For a moment, both women froze, simply gazing at each other. The many years that had passed seemed to melt away for that moment, and in their minds, they were two young girls again, sitting under a mango tree, sharing mangoes or splashing each other with water by the stream. Then the present moment returned. They were older now, both with grey strands in their hair and many life experiences behind them. Ozioma took a step forward, tears already gathering in her eyes. "Mmachi," she said softly, almost in a whisper. Mmachi felt her throat tighten. She set down the pot of soup she had been holding before she dropped it and answered in a trembling voice, "Ozioma." Without another word, they closed the distance between them and embraced tightly. All the emotions they had held back, regret, sorrow, love, relief, poured out as both women began to sob quietly in each other's arms. They held each other like sisters who had been separated for a lifetime. "I'm so sorry," Amachi managed to choke out, her tears wetting Ozioma's shoulder. "I'm so sorry for everything, for the pain I caused you." Ozioma shook her head and hugged Machi even tighter. "It's all right. I forgave you long ago, my dear friend," she said through her tears. "I have missed you so much." They pulled back slightly to look at each other's faces, both lined with age and shining with tears. Machi gently wiped a tear from Ozioma's cheek, and Ozioma did the same for Machi. Those watching the reunion had tears in their own eyes. It was a moving sight, two old friends reconciling after so many years apart. They sat down together on a bench under the shade of a mango tree where they had played as children. While others respectfully gave them space, they talked for a long time. Machi poured out her heart, telling Ozioma everything that had happened in her life since they last saw each other. How her pride led to heartbreak, how she struggled afterward, how her mother died, and how she finally understood all the lessons and changed her ways. She expressed how deeply she regretted hurting Ozioma and how for years she wished she could go back and undo her actions or at least apologize directly. Machi also told Ozioma of the good things, that she had tried to live a life of humility and service, hoping to make her mother proud in the end and hoping Ozioma would hear of her change. Ozioma in turn shared her life story with Machi. She told her how nervous she was to adapt to a new place when she first married Onochi, but eventually she grew to love the people there and they loved her back. She spoke of her children. She had 3, 2 sons and a daughter, all grown now and doing well. She even had grandchildren that brought her great joy. She told Amachi that Onochi had been a good and loving husband all these years and that he had never forgotten Amanze village and the lessons learned from that visit. In fact, Onochi had told their children the story of Amachi and Ozioma as they grew up, not to shame Amachi, but as a gentle lesson that character is more important than beauty or wealth. He had always hoped that Amachi found peace and happiness in life. Ozioma said that hearing of Amachi's later kindness and goodness, news had reached them occasionally through travelers or letters, had made both her and Onochi very happy. "I heard of the kind woman you became," Ozioma said, holding Amachi's hand. "It made me proud and glad. I knew the Amachi I loved was still there and she had finally bloomed." Amachi felt a great weight lift off her heart at these words. To be understood and forgiven by the friend she had hurt the most, it was a gift she thought she might never receive. They held hands like they used to as girls and sat together until the sun began to set, catching up on nearly a lifetime of stories and simply enjoying each other's presence again. When it was time for Ozioma to depart back to her husband's kingdom, after spending a short time in Amanze for the funeral, the two friends hugged each other once more. Ozioma promised that this would not be the last time. She would visit again, and soon. Amachi promised to write letters. She had learned to read and write a little with the help of missionaries who came through the village, so she could manage a simple letter, so that they wouldn't lose touch. They parted with tears and smiles, their hearts finally at peace with each other. From that day on, Amachi felt a renewed sense of wholeness. She had made peace with Ozioma and in doing so, made peace with her own past. She continued to live out her days in Amanze village as a source of wisdom and kindness. Whenever she told the young people the story of her life, she could now include the happy ending of reconciling with her dearest friend. And so, the story of Amachi and Ozioma became a lesson for everyone in Amanze village. To this day, parents and elders tell this tale to the young ones, reminding them that pride goes before a fall. They emphasize that true beauty is not in outward appearance or riches, but in a humble and kind heart. Amachi's life taught them all that treating others with respect and compassion is the greatest wealth a person can have. The lesson in this story is that pride and disrespect can destroy your chances, your friendships, and your peace. But when you choose humility, kindness, and true apology, you can heal your life and earn real respect, even if it takes many years. Thanks for watching this amazing story about Ijeoma and Ego on African Stories by V. If you liked it and felt inspired with their journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.